Your initial take, ma'am.
Well, I think the manufacturing PMI is definitely a positive surprise. We think it got a boost from the release of pent-up supply. Remember, back in August, because of the power shortage, Sichuan province imposed production curbs in the manufacturing sector. Now, power supply in Sichuan province has normalized, so which facilitated the release of pent-up supply. At the same time, we think the government have actually stepped up the efforts in boosting infrastructure construction. And also in September, we see solid progress at the local level to resume the construction of stored projects in the property sector. We think all this have helped to facilitate a rebound in the manufacturing PMI and rating after it stayed in the contractionary territory in July and August.
How are you seeing this impact from these lockdowns? How is it playing out when you think of services, right? You're starting to see the service sector lose a bit of steam here, although it's still in expansion. But what sort of turnaround in consumption are you expecting, if any?
Well, actually, I think the service sector and especially consumer service are most vulnerable to lockdowns and the tightening of various restrictions. So actually, we are not surprised that the service PMI actually dropped from the prior months. On the contrary, manufacturing activities proved to be more resilient during lockdowns because a lot of the factories actually they have adapted to adopt a closed loop production. So that is why we think the manufacturing activities has been more resilient despite of lockdown in various cities in September.
Right. Now, we're also getting some news these last 24 hours, Jacqueline, on the property sector, things like easier access for first-time home buyers, maybe more financing to get some of these construction projects finished. Let's set aside the overall weakness in the housing market, but do you think China's doing enough and has enough in the tank to get most of these projects completed?
Well, to be honest, we think all this policy easing combined adopted in the past few months are quite substantial in scale, and which we think will eventually help the sector to find a bottom sometime later this year. We think there are three policies that are extremely meaningful. Number one is a sharp drop in mortgage rate. So with overnight's announcement, we think mortgage rate may refresh historical new lows in Q3 or Q4, and in private cycles, a material drop in mortgage rate always precipitate eventual rebound in property transactions. Secondly, in terms of various restrictions, with the exception of top-tier cities, I think the easing has been substantial, and in some cities, all the restrictions have been removed. And last but not least, we have really seen central and local government taking forceful measures to ensure home delivery. And I think a good example is Zhengzhou City, because it ordered all store projects to resume construction before October the 6th. And Zhengzhou is the epicenter of home delivery failure. And essentially, Zhengzhou government will foot the bill for finish the construction of store projects. So, AKA, local government is adding its leverage to ensure home delivery. So, and the policy banks have provided 200 billion special loans, and the scale can go up. So, with the funding available and the resolution from local government, we think eventually home delivery will become a smaller problem.
What does it say for the rebound? You're saying this is a Nike swoosh sort of recovery. Play it out for us. How is this going to look?
Well, I mean, for the economic trajectory, we think probably Q1 next year would be the bottom, followed by a slow and a gradual recovery from Q2 next year onward. The reason why we think Q1 might be the bottom is we think after the 20th Party Congress, we will see some relaxation of zero COVID policy, which means probably we are going to see an eventual rise in infections and hospitalization sometime in Q1 next year in the winter, which will, I think for some consumers who are cautious, they may choose to reduce their social activities, and inevitably you will see some people on sick leave, which will cause some disruptions to economic activities. So in the short run, I think the economy is will suffer some pain after the relaxation of zero COVID policy. But after that, we think the marginal impact is going to fade, and eventually we'll see stronger economic growth unfold from Q2 next year onwards.